This video is going to help you identify the major muscles of the shoulder girdle. The first muscle is the deltoid. The deltoid forms what we call the cup of our shoulder and gives our shoulder that rounded contour. So there's an anterior portion, there's a middle, and a posterior portion. But you just need to know that collectively as the deltoid. The other muscle I want to identify here is our pectoralis major muscle. Again, you would have one both on the left and the right sides. Now let's move to the muscles that make up the rotator cuff. You are looking at an anterior view of a right shoulder. Okay. There are 4 muscles that make up the rotator cuff, and we refer to these as our sits muscles, S-I-T-S. The first S stands for supraspinatus. If you think of the name supraspinatus, that means above the spine, and it's referring to the spine of the scapula. So that would be this muscle up here. Okay. So from the anterior side, you can see the muscle here on the superior portion of the scapula. You really get a better view of it from the posterior side. Note, here's the spine of the scapula. So supraspinatus, above the spine, is going to be this muscle here. Then I in sits stands for infraspinatus. Again, referencing the spine of the scapula, but this time infra, meaning below the spine of the scapula. That's going to be this muscle right here. And again, remember, this is a posterior view. So the infraspinatus is on the posterior side of the scapula. The next muscle is T, which stands for teres minor. Okay, and there is a teres major that we'll talk about in a minute. So be sure to remember that teres minor is the one that's part of the rotator cuff. Teres minor can be difficult to differentiate from the infraspinatus because it lies just inferior to it. And so its muscle belly almost appears connected to the infraspinatus. But the teres minor muscle is this one right here. Okay. Then the final S, or muscle in our rotator cuff group, the S stands for subscapularis. Sub meaning deep to, if you think of a submarine. Sub means deep to, so we need to turn our scapula and give you an anterior view of the scapula, and you're looking at the subscapularis muscle. As you notice, the subscapularis muscle belly takes up a majority of the bone of the scapula. But again, this is an anterior view of the scapula. You see the subscapularis. Another muscle that we can see from this view, again, is not considered a rotator cuff muscle, although where it lies is very closely associated with the rotator cuff, is our teres major muscle. And that's this muscle right here, teres major. Let me show you from the posterior view where that muscle is. Teres major is right here. Okay. Notice that teres minor is right above it, and then the infraspinatus is superior to that. So as you're looking at the posterior view, starting the most superior portion, again, is the supraspinatus. You drop below the spine of the scapula, you find the infraspinatus. Just inferior to the infraspinatus, you find the teres minor. And then more inferior to that is the teres major muscle.